الله صل على أحسنتم. طيب الله يحفظكم. ثاني على حب الزهراء. الله صل على. ثالث على حب الحسن والحسين بأعلى الأصوات. الله صل على محمد وآل محمد. جزاكم الله خير. عشان شوية صار. خش بدي. سمع الكلام. هي رحم الله عليكم. خلاص كل شيء تمام. So, guilty pleasures. We all enjoy from one time to another our guilty pleasure. Maybe it's a piece of cake and you're on a diet. Maybe it's going out. And maybe it's backbiting. And this is what we'll speak about today. Backbiting, as in speaking ill about someone that is not present, is something that, unfortunately, I could say almost, if not all, everyone does, and it's a regular social activity. It's like, you see how Arabs love to consume lots of nuts and sunflower seeds. They spend lots of time just one after another. They call it karazat in Iraqi for some reason. But because takriz is like cracking open these nuts and sunflower seeds. So that is what we do when we backbite. It's something you don't feel, because when you're eating sunflower seeds, however much you eat, you don't know how, you know the quantity that you actually ate until you look at the mayhem that you have caused. It's very small, it seems very innocent, but in large quantities, it could be bad. Now, that is sunflower seeds, but backbiting is bad even in the smallest and slightest amount. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, وَإِنَّهَا لَتَأْكُلُ الْحَسَنَاتِ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ النَّارِ الْهَشِيمِ. That backbiting eats from your hasanat, from any blessings and from any good bounty that you receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like fire eats cracked pieces of wood and leaves. You know, the smaller the surface area, the easier it is to ignite. And when it ignites, it all goes into a big ball of fire. So there is actually another narration that talks about something similar. Once the Prophet ﷺ was saying that when you say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, you gain a tree in the heaven. And so the Sahaba, the companions said, then we have so many trees in the heaven, because we say this all the time, especially in prayer, etc. So then he said, وَلَكِنْ لَا تُرْسِلُوا عَلَيْهَا النِّيرَانَ فَتُحْرِقُوهَا. But don't send upon it fire that will burn it and engulf it. And just as a side note, some people will say, what do I do with a tree in the heaven? It's just a tree. Some people opt out of trees, even in this world, even in this land which grows trees very, very well, even without need of giving them much water. Trees, and like every description of the Jannah in the Quran and in the narrations, is not as it seems. Everything there is different. Because we are promised that فِيهَا مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. That within the heavens is what an ear did not hear and an eye did not see, and something that does not cross a heart or mind. So basically a tree is something that is very well sought after in that world. Of course, the Prophet, when he said this to them, they lived in Arabia and they really, really wished to live in the lush lands that they see when they go to the Levant, to Sham. When they go northern, رحلة شتاء والصيف or whatever have you, in their travels and in their merchant ship, they see the trees and they see an atmosphere just like the one here. So it's very appealing, but it also shows or points to something that is far than the eye could see, and the ear could hear, and the mind could imagine. Anyhow, it's the same idea that when you have a big amount of hasanat, inshallah, all of you are like that, and inshallah, may Allah bless us all abundantly and give us more blessings. But if you have more hasanat, you have more leaves to burn. And the more leaves you have, the easier it is to all go in one ball of fire. So why does Islam care about backbiting? You're not hurting anyone, or are you? Sometimes yes, but mostly no. Mostly you're talking in confidence to your confidant, which means that no one else would know what has happened between you two. So where is the damage that Allah does not want in backbiting? ghiba wa namima and otherwise, because it's mentioned at least in 3 verses of the Quran. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. And then, which means do not backbite each other. And then it gives you a very ugly image, one of the ugliest images that is mentioned in the Quran. أَيَوَدُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. Does one of you wish to eat the meat of his dead brother, and so then you would hate him? So what does that mean? It shows that backbiting is like eating a carcass, firstly. Secondly, a human carcass. Thirdly, it will cause hatred. Fourthly, it is your brother, as if you're eating your own meat. That is such an ugly image, and no one here, or anywhere hopefully, would ever think of consuming human flesh, let alone a carcass, let alone a brother's carcass. So this is how Islam is showing us to go away from this as much as possible. So now this hatred that it's mentioned, what is it hatred of? It's hatred that is inflicted by what we have said. So if you're talking ill about someone, not only are you increasing the hatred in your heart, but also in the hearts of those that hear it. So again, where is the damage if nothing will happen afterwards? There are 4 types of damage that occur to us directly when we are backbiting. First of all, what we are promised in the narrations, that our hasanat will be taken away. Secondly, and burning in fire. Secondly, not only will that happen, in the thereafter they will be given to the person that was backbit. So basically, your hasanat will be transferred to the other person that you were backbiting. So you're doing all the work and he has all the enjoyment. Thirdly, it invokes hatred in the Islamic society, which is the top leading cause for problems anywhere. Any society, if you find that it is fragmented, it is almost always based on hatred. Hatred out of jealousy, hatred out of backbiting, hatred out of just different ethnicities or whatever have you, hatred. And what does the Prophet say about the opposite of hatred? Love. وَهَلِ الدِّينُ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. The Prophet is saying, what is religion but love? There isn't anything in religion but love. Loving towards Allah, to society, family members, yourself, and all the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is all in love. If you are removing love by instilling hatred, you are removing Islam itself. So as if you are backbiting, you are destroying your own religion, which takes us to the 4th point. When one practices these small guilty pleasures, a small piece of candy from time to another, the small bag of sunflower seeds, what happens is it gives you more appetite. It lets you and leads you towards things that are greater. In the narration, if the son of Adam would have this want and lust to do small sins, then the devil and himself will both open to him a door that will make him go into bigger sin. Just as the narration says, for example, al-ghina'u ruqyatu zina, that listening to explicit songs that are romantic, for example, or whatever have you, are the doorway towards adultery. That may seem extreme, but we never know. It's all the butterfly effect. A small pebble when it falls into a creek, it does nothing, just a small dollop. But then the waves that are caused will reach all sides of that creek. This is how we are in our lives. Every word that we utter, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ, that every word that we say will be accounted for by an accountant, i.e. an angel, an accountant that is very precise. And in the day of judgment, we will say, hopefully not us, مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ لَا يُغَادِرُ صَغِيرَةً وَلَا كَبِيرَةً إِلَّا أَحْصَاهَا. We will be given logs of what we have done, manifests of everything that we have done in this world. And we say, how does this book not leave out anything big or small? Sipping a cup of tea, adjusting your spectacles or your glasses, adjusting this microphone or whatever have you. All of these micro movements are arranged, the gaze of your eye. So every second you have for it, maybe I'll just as an estimation, 2 A4 pages of things that you have done and things that you have thought and the effects of it, etc., etc., etc. It all compounds. The damage in backbiting is not only that, there is one extra damage that happens sometimes on off chances. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, كل سر جاز الاثنين ذاع. Any secret that transcends two is no longer a secret. It's public now. Because you have a confidant, and your confidant has a confidant, and every time you're multiplying by an exponential of 2. I hope that's mathematically correct. If not, please correct me. So what happens is the increase of the place, or let's say the area in which this secret is no longer a secret, increases slowly by slowly, and sometimes it reaches the wrong person and goes back to the person that it was intended. One narration of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayh, some people were backbiting him, and he was one of the imams that, mashallah, for the longest period was attacked, was ridiculed, and rumors forged against him, and people even performed damnation and la'an for 80 years on the pulpits, on the mimbars, in the Jum'ah prayer. You know, Jum'ah prayer, there are things that are obligatory to be said in it. Otherwise, it's not considered Jum'ah. They considered one part of it to be the la'an of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, until Ibn Mas'ud has changed that. Very shyly also. Very shyly. He was afraid of their retaliation. So, once he was backbit, and one of those that attended that place went to him and told him, "Oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, they said such and such and such." So he told him, "They have forged an arrow and you carried that arrow into my heart. That even if you hear backbiting, and even if you want to redeem yourself by telling the person that was backbit, oh sorry, this has happened, you are effectively hurting that person and hurting his feelings and maybe causing him to retaliate in a way that may be dangerous. Some people have killed other people for just words they have said." So, all in all, the thing about backbiting, it's so addictive. It's so easy. It's so pleasurable. Because when you talk badly about a person, you are venting of things you cannot say in front of him or her. You want to tell them your clothes are ugly, but you can't. So when they leave, "Did you see the shirt he or she was wearing? Oh my God, did she get it from a thrift store?" etc., etc., etc. Same thing. Why did he marry such woman, for example, from this creed, or let's say this ethnicity, or this land, or whatever have you? And then that continues and continues and continues. It's just a way for us to vent. Now, venting is good. We have narrations that say that. Just as an example, "من شكا إلى مؤمن فكأنما شكا إلى Allah." Whoever vents out to a believer, it is as if he had vented out to God. Why? Because when you're sharing the pain that you have and the heaviness you have in your heart, of course, without going into the haram areas. You know, just basically, for example, sitting with a friend telling him, "I feel bad, these days money is quite tight, etc." What will happen is 3 things. First of all, they will give you good advice. Al-mu'minu mir'atu akhihi al-mu'min. The believer is the mirror of his other believer. And also, in another narration, "Man shawara an-nasa sharakahum uqulahum." Whoever takes consult, then shares the intellect of the people that he had taken consult from. So they could even aid you on that extent. Another thing, their emotional support. And I need to stress this very, 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 very much. We all need a support system. Doesn't matter if you're young, if you're old, doesn't matter if you have experience in life or if you don't. It doesn't matter if people seek your advice or not, or if you are highly revered in a society or not, for valid reason or not, regardless of anything. We all need a support system. You can't do everything on yourself. This is why Islam wants a community, because a community, يَشُدُّ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا. Each one would strengthen the other one that is next to him. So venting is a good thing, and it causes that we don't lose steam. In the sense that if you have so much pressure and you're carrying it on your shoulders and no one knows, you are likely to implode. This is why it is highly mustahab, recommended, when, God forbid, you have a funeral or some relative dies, that you announce. It is one of the mustahabbat of burial. And for some reason now, I remembered Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha, and my heart it skipped a beat and was wrenched for a second. Because no one attended her funeral, for reasons that are well known. However, it is highly recommended to declare to people so that they would stand with you, so that you wouldn't go into trauma, you wouldn't go into a breakdown, you wouldn't go into... So all of that tells us that it is important to vent. So isn't backbiting venting sometimes? You're venting your hate so that it doesn't affect others? Jazakumullah alaf khair. So the answer to that is no. That is not considered venting. That is considered giving the shaitan, giving Iblis a mouth to speak out of. What does that mean? You know, if something is excessively pleasurable and you don't know why, like backbiting, it's so nice to do. I know that. So nice to do. But it doesn't give any benefit, not real one, then know for sure that behind it is Lucifer himself, Iblis. He's making things, يُزَيِّنُ لَهُمْ, as the Quran mentions, to beautify and adorn bad things. It gives you more pleasure doing something that is forbidden. They call it the forbidden fruit. So he's giving us this pleasure so that he will have a tongue to speak out of. Which means if we are backbiting, it is not us that is speaking. It is Iblis speaking on our tongue and tarnishing our body and soul together. And let's all try. And I'm addressing myself with this. Inshallah, you all don't need this advice. I'm just reminding myself in front of you. Let me try to stop backbiting for a certain period of time, and you will find that there is no sort of pleasure in it anymore, and you don't know what the fuss was all about. You know, it's like after you quit it, you figure out that you really don't need it. But the problem is how? How not to become an instrument of shaitan. And of course, listening to ghiba is equally, if not bigger, than actually saying ghiba. In some of the narrations, مَنِ اسْتَمَعَ إِلَى نَاطِقٍ فَقَدْ عَبِدَ. Whoever listens to a speaker, then it is as if he is worshipping by his ways. So those narrations show, and also others, that if a mu'min is backbit in front of you, then you must contest with your tongue, otherwise with your hand, otherwise at least dislike it in your heart and try to not sit in these sittings. Which leads us to the final part of this lecture. How do I, or how can I stop backbiting? This is a problem. Why? Because as friendships go, we are symbiotic with each other. Scratch my back, I scratch yours. This is how a friendship is made. So, and this is why friends are friends. They enjoy each other's company. They give each other things. They give each other the pleasure of company, right? Hearing each other, sharing thoughts, doing mutual, let's say, activities together that they like. And one of them is backbiting. When you go and backbite in front of your friend and they get so accustomed to it, they're going to share with you and double down, and they're going to backbite people of their own. It is going to be a common activity. It is going to be a set part of what you regularly do, which is a problem. And it's important that one gets out of this mood. So this is an actual question sent to me. And by the way, of course, you could send me directly on my WhatsApp questions right now in English for the English lecture, or regarding anything regarding Islam. I'll remind you with the number one last time. Plus, no one. So don't write one. Some of you have written one, and so my number doesn't show to them in WhatsApp. So it's my country code is 973. Leave the one out. It's not an American number. Plus 973 3677 99 63. I'll keep my phone on my lap to see any question that may arise, because we had a question yesterday, but unfortunately I did not have a chance to see it. Oh, and a question right now. Thank you very much. So yeah, the more the merrier. How, if I get so used on actually sharing backbiting with my friend or my clique, how do I start to take them out of this mood? It needs two things. First of all, a solid decision that stems out of tawbah and fear of God. Tawbah, repentance, and fear of God. There has to be a decision that you take. Okay, no calls, please, just messages. Someone called by accident. Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing that it needs is strong willpower. Everything needs being used to. See, our children, when they go into the summer vacation, it's very difficult then to assimilate them to sleep in the time that is designated so that they wake up early, right? But we make them do it anyways. We need to force ourselves and force our friends as much as possible by having a stance and saying, guys, I'm really sorry, but I think I had in this Ramadan a change of mind and I don't want to engage in this activity anymore. And I don't want us to be like these excessively religious, if that's a thing even, excessively religious groups that talk only about religion, but I don't really want to listen about ghiba. Keep that to yourself and I'll keep it to myself, and I won't speak ill about anyone. Of course, except those that are opposing, let's say, religion and Ahl al-Bayt. That is another thing. That is a way of being victorious upon them, as mentioned in the Quran. Anyhow, so the idea is we need to stand and communicate to our friends very clearly, we are not going to engage in this behavior. What happens later on is one of two things. They either respect your point of view, or they try to play it off and say jokingly, no, we will still do it, and they'll still do it in front of you. So now the question is, should I leave them? Because it's يا ليتني لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا. The Quran says, I wish I haven't had you as a friend. Some people will be saying this to each other in the day of judgment because they pulled them towards bad things. So the answer is no, don't leave, just suddenly, and don't cut out your friends. However, when you go back, text them privately, call them, telling them that no, I was actually serious about what I was saying and we need to stop this. And I forgave you this time because, you contested me and you intentionally started to backbite to just pull me back into this routine, but truly I'm not going to do that. And if that happens again, I don't know, I may lessen my time with you guys or whatever have you. And I don't want to do that because I love you guys. It has to be communicated. We're not talking from a pompous point of view, مترفع عليهم, not like that. You're talking to them, trying to fix them and yourself. If they don't fix that, you have all the right not to go. You have all the right not to go. And at the end of the day, that is shawka, the road of the fork, as it's called in the Quran, which means there are some roots in life that we must attack head on, like sin. We cannot, just mujamalat. What is mujamalat in English? Sorry? Pleasantries, something else? Courtesies. As we do not practice courtesy in religion in the sense that, oh, if something bad is happening, I will be quiet because I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Of course, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, but sometimes you have to dig in your skin to pick out the thorn. Sometimes a little damage has to be done. However, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all, inshaAllah, health and wealth and everything that is good in this month and all the months that are to come. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with solid and white hearts that do not accept backbiting, ghiba, namima, and any sort of sin from that distances us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah give us the beautiful taste of the belief in Him. وَأَفْلَحَ مَنْ صَلَّى عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ. And again, brothers and sisters, I thank you so much for sending so many questions. And I really love when this happens. Question. Alaykum salam. If a parent, elder, or someone you need to respect is in the habit of backbiting and you don't want to shut them down or hurt their feelings, how do you respectfully tell them not to do it? This is one of the most important questions, because sometimes when we have elders, we don't want to offend them, especially if they are our parents or our grandparents or whatever. God forbid they do that, but sometimes it happens. So I'll tell you a personal story of mine. A very close family member of mine, I hope he's or she's not watching, but they do backbite all the time. I kid you not, even if you meet him or her for like 3 seconds, they're going to throw something on your way. They're going to give you a test. It's like, psych, throw the ball directly. Nothing, with no introduction, directly into ghiba. I have tried my route, and another one from my family tried the route. So my other family member tried the aggressive route. They swore not to take them in car rides. They swore not to sit with them, and they would only say salam and then run off away, which is not a good way to conduct with family members, and that did not work. My way, however, was that I actually have 100%, I'm 100% sure that he or she will not change, because they're so old in age that they're fixated on this, and anytime we try to give them advice, it doesn't work. So what I've learned is to just let it enter one ear and pass through the other, not believe anything that is being said, interact just with the extent that is necessary, and other than that, not entertain any further talk. So sometimes it gets to this extent. This is what I want to say. Sometimes no. Sometimes they could receive advice. So the first thing you should seek is not you speaking to them, but someone that is closer to their age, someone that they respect, to give them the advice. And if that doesn't work, then your advice won't work. And with that, the condition of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar falls. If you have no chance of altering them whatsoever, you don't have to do Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahi al Munkar. But then they say, but I hear ghiba, don't I get sin? It's just like when you go to an outlet, you want to shop for Eid, and they're blasting out music, or not music, but rather, because many marja say music is okay if it's not excessively, loud and etc., classical music, whatever have you. But songs, you're not there for the song. There is a difference between sama' and istima'. You're not going there to intentionally listen, so you could do your shopping. You don't have to rush around, even though it is recommended to rush, but it's not something that you intended. It's just, I don't know, it's just like your car backfiring. You have no control over it until you fix it. There is no fixing of it, so you just go ahead. So my advice is seek someone closer to their age, let them talk to them. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then your word wouldn't work. If you say that maybe your word would work, then talk to them. If that happens and they still don't change, just, bear with it. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum salam. If something is public, would it be considered ghiba if discussed with others? Good. So that's one question. There is another. So let me answer this one. We have a narration that says لا غيبة لفاسق, that there is no ghiba on someone that openly does his sin. So if someone is openly, let's say, vulgar, wherever he goes, he throws bad words, bombs here and there. You know what I'm saying? So, can I do ghiba? You can, and it's not considered ghiba in the cycle that he practices this in front of. So if he does this around friends, you can talk about it with friends, but you can't go to his family and tell them. Except in some exceptions in which they could change him, whatever have you. But rule of thumb, if someone is openly does sin and doesn't care what is being said about him, you could talk about it. But even that, it is recommended not to. Second question, if a guy approaches a friend for marriage, are we able to discuss details about them, or that would be considered ghiba? This is excellent. I don't know why that didn't come up to my mind when I was saying all of this and preparing for tonight, but thank you very much. This is why I love questions. They show off the areas that are important. So if someone comes to marry your friend or brother, sister, whatever have you, and you know information, should you disclose it? Two things. Firstly, if that thing is most likely repented from, then you are not allowed to do that. So if he used to not pray at all, but now he's practicing praying always, maybe only for the reason of marriage, but you're not allowed to disclose that he used to not pray. because that is a fault that he covered and he does no more. And as far as you know, he is praying. So if he repents or changes his ways, you're not allowed to say that, unless not saying it will cause excessive problems later on. For example, if you have someone, let's say, that, let me look for something really, really good, that used to steal a lot. And you know this friend, and now he repented, but you know this friend, and that he wants to marry, and this friend says, the worst thing I hate is stealing or whatever have you. It's something that is very imperative to her or him, so communicating that can be done. That is the first thing. The second thing is that if there is a big chance of issues happening within that marriage because of this fault, then yes, you can communicate it, but you must keep that secret between you and the person. So no talking to his father, mother, telling them about it. Just to the same person, tell him, I don't recommend that you marry from this person because he was this and that. So if you're in doubt, you don't know if you're allowed to say this or not, because marriage is such an important thing, you are allowed to say it. Because you don't know, does it register as backbiting or not? Is it really good or bad? It's fine, since this is marriage, a very important thing. You could go ahead and you could say whatever is a fault. So again, to keep things short, you are allowed to tell people of faults of other people when they go and propose to them in marriage, but make sure that you don't overexpose this person, and talk within the realms of what is important rather than everything else, because Allah accepts the tawbah and so should we. Salam alaikum salam. How about sometimes we tell our kids not to hang out with certain kids because of their bad things they do? Is that ghibat? That is unfortunately considered ghiba, unless so the answer here is, if getting your children away is more important than practicing ghiba regarding this, then yes. I'll give you two examples, one in which you can say it and one in which you can't. If you find that a certain child, let's say, is always fond on vandalizing people's property, always does it, always gets beaten, always does it again, and you don't want your child to be affected, and you know that this will be very dangerous because many repercussions could happen, you are allowed to say, even if your child does not know that this other child does this and that. So here you're allowed to speak because this is actually something serious. Similar to, for example, saying vulgar words, whatever have you. But if it is something very mundane, but you consider it to be bad, like for example, this child does not pray in the first time of prayer, then you mustn't tell your child that, okay, this person delays prayer or whatever have you. But you tell them that I think he's a bad influence and that is enough. So you're always allowed to advise your children, but disclosing the fault or not depends on whether your child knows this already, which makes it permissible, or notices it, or if it is a danger on your child and you're the judge of that. Is it dangerous or not? So yes, you can in most cases do that. Does ghiba break your fast? Per the Prophet ﷺ, yes. But breaks your fast spiritually rather than jurisprudentially, which means you don't have to redo the fast, but your fast is no longer valid unless you do tawbah. And repenting from ghiba is difficult because you have to actually say to the people that you did ghiba in front of, just forget everything I've said, I wasn't the wrong, I was exaggerating, whatever have you. You don't have to mention exactly what you said, but you just wrong yourself in front of them, that is more than enough. And doing istighfar on the other party. So yes, it does break the fast, but spiritually. السلام عليكم. هناك كلام يكون من أجل إرجاع الحقوق أو رد ظلم أو تعدي وقع علينا. هل الكلام عنه يجوزه بعض المراجع من أجل الحفاظ على الحقوق? So it says that sometimes ghiba is necessary to regain some of our lost rights. That's a way. The Quran actually touches that and says that yes, you're allowed to do ghiba in that circumstance also. I didn't mention it because it's not the main reason why people do backbiting and ghiba. Can someone remind me the verse? فمن the ghiba verse. No, the other one that says إلا من انتصر إلا من لا يحب الله الجهر بالسوء من القول إلا من ظلم. God does not like wickedness and evilness to be communicated except for those that have been wronged. إلا من ظلم. Yeah, those that have been wronged and had injustice over them. So in those cases, yes. For example, a person, an employer does not give you your wages, and you are speaking to people that are likely to change it or to help you change it. So yes, that is allowed, but on per obligatory precaution أحوط وجوبا, to only say it in front of people that could change or help you. We'll take the last two for the English lecture. We'll have some for Arabic also. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh al-Aziz, azakum Allah, wa alaikum assalam. What is the line between ghiba and shaming? Shame is an essential regulator of any society. Correct you are. Of course, we should not try and go out and expose people who are struggling with sin. But when does it become mandatory to do nahi an munkar if a haram act done in secret starts to become more prominently known? Okay. Oh, haram act, yes, done in secret starts to become more prominently known. So, shaming is discipline by showing people what they have done in front of them. And we do that all the time. So, what is the fine line between shaming and between doing ghiba? Shaming is when you're talking to the same person. Ghiba is talking to others. Similarly, when you're talking about someone, it could be to rectify him, like telling his parents that this person has done this and this and that, so please discipline him. That is also possible. And of course, we are not, as the message says, we are not to expose people, because exposing makes people know how to do sin, just like Nabi Allah Yaqub, when he told his children that I fear that if you take Joseph, that the wolf will eat him. In the narration says that Joseph gave them a ready excuse. So if you tell people, oh, this person has done this sin in this way, people are going to learn how to do sins and are going to be more exposed. So sometimes it's bad to expose sins. And even there is a narration regarding Amir Mu'mineen that if I seen two people doing zina, I would cover them with my cloak. That may, wait, I'm not 100% sure this is a narration, but it is affiliated somehow to Amir Mu'mineen. So I need to check, but it makes sense also to cover up and not expose, so that لألا تشيع الفاحشة, so that bad things won't spread in the society. But at the same time, there are controlled fires that we do, especially in California, to protect from bigger fires. So rule of thumb, we have قاعدة الضرر, the rule of harm. If you are doing harm to relieve a bigger harm, you are allowed to. But if by your best judgment, this is the way to go and there isn't any other way, you could apply this to everything that I've said, and that will be a rule that you could work with safely without any issues. Last question. I've seen the interpretation of Ahl Bayt, إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله, as من شكا إلى مؤمن فقد شكا إلى الله. Thank you very much. I love this also too, because this is at the beginning not a question, but rather a comment that either fortifies or contests what I'm saying. Both are good. So the message says from our dear brother, إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله. In the Quran, they mentioned this narration as an interpretation of it. من شكا إلى مؤمن فقد شكا إلى الله. But doesn't that seem the opposite of the translation of the verse? Yes and no. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about himself sometimes in first person, sometimes talks in proxy. When he talks in proxy means, I'll give you just a good example. Let's recite this ayah together, because it's in Ramadan. بل يتوفاكم ملك الموت الذي وكل بكم. It says that when your time comes, inshallah after a long age, the angel of death will come to take your souls as he was commanded by Allah. This is the verse. Another verse says, الله يتوفى الأنفس حين موتها. God takes the souls when their time is ripe. Contradiction direct. One, it says Malak al-Maut takes the souls, one says Allah. It is Allah, but by proxy, and it is Malak al-Maut, but in first person. So basically, when it says إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله, I am saying my sorrows to Allah, and then it is translated or interpreted by Ahl Bayt, من شكا إلى مؤمن فكأنما شكا إلى الله, that if you vent to a believer, it is as if you vented to Allah. You have vented to Allah, but through a proxy. So that is what it means. So yeah, that's an excellent question. Last one. I think people know it's bad to backbite, but maybe don't understand the conditions or requirements of what makes up backbiting. For example, someone will justify backbiting by saying ABC committed XYZ sin. Okay, so let's go back to the rule of thumb. Again, I love giving rules of thumb. So, rule of thumb. When we have something that is bad to be known, like something that hurts reputation, that's the first condition of ghiba. Second condition of ghiba, that people don't know about this. Third condition of ghiba is that it is done on ill intent, so you are just practicing backbiting for pleasure. And number 4, it is not for a good reason, nor for saving yourself or others from injustice, nor for righteous causes. And 5 and final, that you are saying this regarding a believer, because al-ghiba is for believers. Of course, this does not mean that you should backbite non-believers, but these harsh rulings apply when you are talking about a fellow believer also. But when a person is a non-believer, many restrictions are lifted. However, it is highly recommended that one does not do that. And with that, I sum my talk. I don't know where my phone went. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. I have far too many. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. الله عليكم ورحمكم عني. إن شاء الله أجمعين.